I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter and Dart, and today I will be speaking on a Flutter topic called From Prompt to Pixel Gen UI with Flutter. Now, you must have heard of Gen UI previously because it's quite a fun topic that has come up recently. So let's explore and see what GenUI is and how you can use GenUI with Flutter. So, a little introduction before we begin the session. So, I'm a GDE for Flutter and Dart. Along with that, I'm also a Women Tech Makers Ambassador, and I'm part of three Google lit communities here in the UAE. And I like to share my knowledge in the form of blogs or like sessions like these. And apart from all of this, I'm also a full time developer working for Patent Global. So that was about me, a quick introduction. So let's explore our agenda for today. Let's see the topics that we will be discussing. So starting with, we will see what exactly is Gen UI and why we need it in our projects, how it can help us save time and also save effort. And we after that we will also explore how we can use Firebase Gen AI with Gen UI and build Flutter applications. So these are two different things, the Gen UI and Firebase Gen AI, which we will be discussing separately. And then together we will see how it all works together. And I will also share an example to make it more clearer and to understand better. So now I would describe Gen UI as something that generates dynamic UI. Now you must have heard of server driven UI, and server driven UI, the user or the backend developer controls what UI is to be rendered in Flutter applications in the form of JSON or schema. But Gen UI is different from server driven UI because in Gen UI, the UI is going to be generated not by the backend developer. We will be using AI to generate the UI for us, which will be generated in the form of JSON or schema or AI. And this schema or JSON is then going to be rendered into our Flutter applications. So this is the basic difference between server driven UI and Gen UI. The only thing is that in server driven UI, backend developer controls the data, whereas in Gen UI, the AI controls what data is to be rendered. Now, this has faster changes without app updates because you just have to write a prompt of what changes you want to do in the applications, and it will be automatically rendered in the UI. You don't have to push an update. So in this way, when we keep the UI dynamic, we will have complete control over the app updates as well. And Flutter in this scenario of Gen UI works as a UI renderer, which again we will explore further. And lastly, the logic and validation will stay within the app. So GenUI has nothing to do with the logics. It is only and only going to write the widgets for us and not the logic. So logic and validation will still be controlled by the developer. So um, now that was about generative UI. Let's see what how we can still define it further. Now, Gen UI in Flutter is going to generate UI dynamically at runtime. Now, generative UI is going to generate the UI in the form of JSON or a schema like output. This output is then going to be rendered by the Flutter. So this is how the Gen UI is going to be used with Flutter. Instead of having to fully hard code the widgets, we are going to let generative UI write the widgets for us and then make the Flutter render those UI for us. So we are saving a lot of time here and also effort. So something that can be a quick fix or an easy UI fix. We can use generative UI in that scenario, but provided that the UI is going to be dynamic. So that is one thing we need to make sure. Now let's understand it with an example. So let's say I'm giving a prompt to my generative UI that create a button with the text "Pay now" and an action or an on pressed functionality to be "Submit payment." So this is going to be rendered as the JSON that is being shown here. It will say that the type is button, text is pay now, as I had prescribed, and the action or the on pressed element here is going to be submit payment. Submit payment is again going to be further defined what exactly it needs to do, or sorry, submit payment is not going to be defined because this is a function, right? So function will not be defined by the UI. Function is basically logic which we will be writing from our side. So yeah, the JSON here, which was generated by the GenUI, is later on going to be rendered by Flutter, and it is going to map the elements with the Flutter UI catalog, and it is going to render the widget for us. So here, this JSON component was rendered to this the elevated button, where on pressed is the action that is submit payment, and the child is going to be a text with the value pay now. So widgets like text, row, column, button, and so on, etc., are going to be rendered by Flutter. So these are the kind of widgets that will be generated by the GenUI and are rendered by Flutter. So let's see how we can use generative UI with Gen AI in Flutter, Firebase Gen AI in Flutter. So let us first understand what each one does. Now, as we spoke, generative UI reads the JSON or the schema and builds Flutter widgets, right? So the JSON is the JSON that was generated. Um, the Flutter is going to build those widgets from this JSON. Here, Firebase Gen AI is going to generate the schema for us. So yeah, so this is the basic difference here. And Flutter is going to render those widgets so that we can have an interactive application. Now, these are the three things where Firebase Gen AI generates the UI or the schema or data. Generative UI reads the JSON or the schema that was generated by Gen AI, and Flutter is going to render the data, the JSON data, into an interactive app in our device. So this is the functionality of the three elements here, components. Now, when we use generative UI with Firebase Gen AI, an AI model is generated, which will be structured into a UI at runtime. So, what this means is when the JSON is generated at runtime, we are going to have the widgets rendered. The Flutter is going to render the widgets at runtime here, and we will see an example for that also. And so you must be thinking, what if there is a wrong value in the JSON? How is Flutter going to understand that? So there is a set set rules called as catalog, and this catalog will have a list of all the widgets possible to be rendered by Flutter at that level. So anything that does not match with the catalog will not be rendered, and that could throw an error. And we can handle that with the try and catch. So yeah, so there will be a catalog with which the Flutter is going to map the JSON schema to render the widgets. Again, any kind of logic like validations or any button actions will not be provided by the generative UI. That is something that needs to be handled by Flutter itself. So let us understand the flow here. Now, as a user, I'm going to type and say, um, it could be anything. Give me a riddle. So that here is a user action. The user is performing an action of writing a prompt, which is give me a funny riddle in my Flutter application. That will be passed along with the context to Firebase Gen AI, which is going to generate the generate the data, and this data can be in the form of JSON or schema. That JSON is going to be then rendered at this level, that is Flutter, and Flutter is going to render those widgets and then pass it on to the screen so that we can have an interactive app. So this is the flow with which the generative AI works. First comes the user action, the prompt in the Flutter application, then which is going to be passed to generative AI, where data will be generated in the form of schema, which is then rendered by Flutter and passed on to the UI, the screen. So this is how the flow happens. Now, one thing that we need to understand and not mix up is that Firebase generative AI only generates data. It will not render the UI. So this data, like I said, it is going to be like a structured output with the JSON or schema, and it will the Firebase generative AI is only going to respond to the prompt that we have passed, that is give me a funny riddle. The Firebase AI, this is the data that the Firebase AI takes in, that is the input to Firebase AI, and the output will then be passed to be rendered. So that's about that. Now we need to understand when we can use the combination of Gen AI and Gen UI, and when not to use. So if you have something like onboarding flows where each step could be dynamic, like let's say I have my onboarding screens and I have onboarding guide screens and initially I have kept it as two screens, but later on I plan to add two more screens. So these things can be handled by onboarding, can be handled by Gen AI, because it's going to be static data, and most of the time in our onboarding screens, onboarding guide screens especially, we are displaying data. We will not have a lot of call to action buttons there, so it's just for the user to read and pass on to the next page. Such kind of flows we can keep Gen AI, because the data will be static. Nothing, the only thing that remains dynamic here is the number of screens. So we can keep it two and then say add two more screens to my onboarding flow, and then that would keep on adding like that. So such cases we can use the generative AI, like help and support screens. Again, data is going to be static. There could be a call to action button that is going to take the user to the phone screen. Again, this is something we can handle with Gen AI. Um, Also recommendations and summary. then dynamic dashboards and AI assistant inside apps, because these are the things that do not require logic in them. So they are kind of static data. Such cases we can use a generative UI, because we will be only displaying the data, not controlling it there. Now, when not to use generative UI, so core navigation. So obviously navigation is going to consist of lot of logic, which screen to go to, and when to go, which screen to pop, how many screens to pop. So such logic can become complex in bigger applications, and sometimes even in smaller applications. So such kind of places we can avoid using Gen AI, and better to manually write the code in such cases. Also, performance critical flows where the app performance, if it is if a wrong move can affect the app performance, such kind of screens also, such kind of flows also we can avoid to use generative UI, the generative AI. And highly animated custom UI, again, animation is going to take up a lot of resources, and having Gen AI do the job for us in such screens could be risky, because in such cases we like to keep minimal logic, because animation is again doing a lot of things. So it's best to avoid Gen AI. And payments logic, obviously, because it can consist of sensitive data that can be, maybe it can with a mistake, like if you write something which was not tested, the information could be scattered within um, the backend. So such cases that consist of user sensitive data, we can avoid it. But obviously for the UI, where things are going to be static, we can add such generative UI, generative AI. Only in the logic we need not add, but the UI we can add Gen AI for the payments functionality. Now let us understand with an example here. So I'm going to write a prompt and say, generate a simple riddle screen for a Flutter app. Include one riddle question and one button to reveal the answer, and return structured JSON only using text and button. So I have three sentences here, and I have clearly defined what exactly I want in the JSON. So I'm saying create a simple riddle screen. So it is going to uh, make a title. One component is going to be called screen with the value riddle, because that is what I have asked. And it is then going to add a component which is going to have type and value, which is going to be the question, and one which is going to be the answer. So components here is a list of question and then answer. Question with type text and value of that text, and then we also have one answer which is of type button, and show answer function is going to reveal the answer for us. So, and I have also specifically mentioned using text and button. So this is a kind of prompt that is explaining everything in detail. So, yeah, when I mentioned this is the kind of response I got from the Gen AI. And let's see how we can break it down in our Flutter application. So, I have my riddle screen. Name of the screen can be riddle. And I have two components. One is question, one is answer. And let's say it has Flutter is here assuming that it is in a column. So first child in the column is going to be the question. Type was text, so it is going to use the widget text. The value is going to be the value of that text, and obviously the font is going to be something presumed by Flutter. Then I have the answer, which is going to be in the form of a button, elevated button with the action, that is show answer, that is my on press function, and the label of that button is going to say reveal answer. So this is how it looks like. So this question was generated by the Gen AI. What has hands but cannot clap? Because this is a kind of riddle, right? So I specifically asked my Gen AI to include one riddle question and one button to reveal the answer. So that is exactly what was generated by the uh, AI here, which is then converted into widgets by my Flutter application. So one question and one reveal answer. So when I click on reveal answer, I'm going to add a function which is going to print the data here in my text field here. So this is how it looks like. Now, before we begin with a live example, there are few components that we need to understand what it does. We have generative UI conversation. We are going to use this object to keep track of the conversation between the user and the generative AI. That is, in this case, it is going to be a Firebase. Okay, Firebase AI, Gen AI, and the Flutter user are going to have a conversation where the user is going to ask a question in the form of a prompt, and the Firebase AI is going to answer back in the form of JSON. So this conversation, this is kept in track with the help of an object which is of type GenUI conversation, and this is from the package Flutter GenUI, which is the package that we are going to use the GenUI in Flutter. And we will also be using the Firebase GenUI Flutter Firebase AI, one more package to link with Firebase to use the AI model of the Firebase. So we will later explore what content generator, surface added, surface deleted, and message processor does. But just an overview that Gen UI conversation is used to keep track of conversation between Flutter app user and Firebase AI. Next component that we will be using is called core catalog item. Now, earlier I mentioned that Flutter is going to render the UI by mapping the JSON with the catalog of widgets that currently exist. So that catalog is consisted in that catalog is present in core catalog items as catalog. So this is the catalog that will be used. It defines the safe set of UI components the Gen AI can use, ensuring that the AI only generates Flutter renderable and approved widgets. Anything other than this will throw an error and will not render the UI properly. So that is the reason we need to have this, so that anything outside of this can be easily caught in the catch block of error handling. And finally, we have A2UI message processor. Now, this object, this is used to convert the AI that is generated by Firebase to UI, which the Flutter does. So this is what is going to render the widgets for us. It takes a list of catalogs that is from the core catalog items that we just mentioned earlier. It is going to take that object all the allowed components or all the allowed widgets. It is going to take that and it will convert the AI messages from the Firebase into UI components that Flutter can later render. So this is basically the bridge between the AI, Firebase AI, and the Flutter UI. So this is what converts the JSON. And yeah, so Gen AI sends a message. That message can be button, text, or riddle. Uh, A to UI message processor reads that message and it converts it into Flutter widgets. The catalog argument that we pass tells which UI components are allowed and which are not. So, uh, the example that we discussed previously, here the Gen AI generates this JSON, and from this JSON to the Flutter UI, what is going to convert it is the A to UI message processor that we just saw. So this is what converts the data. So now let us look at an example. So I hope my screen is visible. So I have with me an example here. It is a basic Flutter program. I have just added few functions which I will be explaining. But yeah, so in my home page, the three components that we just discussed, that is GenUI conversation and core catalog items and A to UI message processor. So these things are required to get started, to start the conversation with Flutter Firebase AI. So initially, we are going to define the conversation element, a conversation object, and then we are going to um, in our in it we are going to define the catalog and the message processor, and here we are going to call Firebase AI content generator, which is a Firebase AI generator that is going to generate the riddle for us. Now we need to give a instruction to this object, to this system, saying that uh, we are, so basically what we do here is we are defining the system, the AI model, we are defining it and saying that you are a professional comedian, and whenever I give a word, just generate a short joke and format it so that the UI will be rendered by Flutter, and also show a punchline button. So this is something that I just wrote, but definitely this is the dynamic thing that you can have. It can be anything based on your use case. You can say generate a list of tourist places for me, or generate my you can say you are a workout generator to generate workouts for me, or to generate meal plans for me, or generate quotes for me. It can be anything. Generate games for me also. So such kind of things we need to define the AI model, what exactly our AI model will do. And here I have also told that whenever I give a word, generate a short funny joke related to that word. Include a punchline that is clever, light-hearted, and easy to understand. Format it so that it can be displayed in a Flutter UI with a show punchline button. So everything has been described. The model has been clearly instructed by me here. This is how we will be instructing the model. And this generator is then passed on to a GenUI conversation object, GenUI conversations. And here we are going to say this is the content generator this is my content generator, and on surface added, on surface deleted, and a to ui message processor. So what is on surface added? So here is my on surface added. So basically when I am updating my prompt, that is going to be kept in track with surface IDs. So surface ID is what is going to hold my prompt. Whenever I add an element, it is going to update the surface ID. Whenever I delete an element, it is going to remove from that surface ID. So surface ID is what will be uh, passed on to the generator. So those are the things we have. And A2 UI message processor, again, we just discussed. This is what converts the AI data to UI. So this is again going to be passed on to generative UI conversation, and this conversation is then going to be displayed in my list. So I'll quickly run this. Sometimes there will be firebase credits, so if you exhaust the credits you will not get the response, but let's try. So I have said here, you are a professional comedian. Whenever I give a word, so let's say I want a funny joke on the word clown, and I'm going to press this send. So what does send do? Send is going to send the message, and it will add that message request in the conversation object. So let's try that. So I have cleared my text field once I press the send button. So yeah, and send here is an elevated button with the on pressed functionality. So this should return a riddle for us. Now this is the riddle that was returned. So this is something I don't have in my application at all. This was generated by the Firebase Gen AI. So why did the clown break up with the mime? So let's show punchline. Again, this show punchline has come from the generative AI in the form of JSON, which was then rendered in my UI here because he couldn't get a word in HY. So this is the basic the data that is passed on from Flutter, and you can also add some style to this. You can style it however you want, but right now I've kept it very simple. And this way you can even change the instruction here and make it do more things as per the use case. And if you want more, you can if you want something on some other topic, let's say we want a funny joke on car, we can do that. But we there is a limited number of requests that we can pass. So why did the car get a flat tire? Because it ran into a fork in the road. So yeah, so these are the riddles from Gen AI. So yeah, so this is the list view. So usually new element will be added onto this list. This is the list view builder that we are using, and item count is again the surface id dot length, and each id here is going to be the index, and gen ui surface is basically this one block can be considered as gen ui surface, because when you have more and more riddles it keeps adding to that list here. So that is how we can display the data from the generative ai. And this text field that I have here is our very simple text field with the hint text enter your message. that gets cleared up when you click on send. So once I click on send, my text field clears up so that I can enter new message. And this button here has functionality send message, which I have prescribed, where it will add that request to the conversation object so that this conversation object can reach to Firebase AI, pass my prompt or my request, and then bring back the data in the form of JSON. So this is how the data flows here from the user to the Gen AI and then back to the user. So this is a very simple example. Like I said, you can change this instructions match as per your use case and make it do more things for you. So the component that we are using here is GenUI conversation. We are also using core catalog items to map um, the JSON data and see that if anything is not matching, do not render it. So because then the Flutter will not be able to render it. Firebase AI content generator, where we are going to pass a system instruction of what we want the AI model to do for us. This can be anything, like I said, as per the use case. And that very generator, we are going to pass on to a new GenUI conversation class, where we are going to also write some instructions like on surface added, on surface deleted. And we're also going to pass the A to UI message processor, which then helps to convert the data to the UI. So all of these things we will be passing. And Gen UI surface here is uh, the element that was rendered into the UI. Any more elements will be sitting in that list of Gen UI surface, and you can customize the UI however you want as per your use case. You can add more things, delete more things, and so I have skipped the part where I have connected my uh, project to Firebase, but because we are using Firebase Gen AI, we need to connect to the Firebase. I have done all that setup previously itself, and the two packages that we are using is GenUI and GenUI Firebase AI. GenUI is just for GenUI, and GenUI Firebase AI is for the Firebase Gen AI that we use. So without any of this, we will not be able to generate any data. So yeah, we need these two packages mandatory and all the components that we've used. So you can experiment with this however you want. So that was about the example, and that's all for today's session. Do we have any comments or questions? Anything related to Gen AI or generative UI, you can feel free to reach out to me. These are my socials. I would be happy to help.